Hi, this is Jerry Ball, and you're listening to The Grueling Truth.
Welcome to The Grueling Truth's NFL Legends Show, brought to you by Gridiron Mo, an interactive football app where you get to call what you think the offense or defense should do during a live NFL game and see what all other fans have called also. Check out Gridiron Mo at www.gridironmo.com. I'm your host for the Legends Show, Mike Goodpaster, and I want to welcome in my co-host, as always, Matt Andruscavage.
Thanks very much, Mike. Glad to be here today. Excited about doing another NFL Legends Show.
Well, this guy was one of the best defensive ends in all of football in the decade of the 1980s, played for the Dallas Cowboys, won 2 Super Bowls. Help me welcome to the show, James Jeffcoat. How you doing, James?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you guys doing? And
most people doing real good.
Jim. Most people call me Jim.
Okay, well, I'll call you James.
No problem.
Jim, but, so when did you first start playing football?
I started playing when I was a freshman in high school. And I wasn't very good. I wasn't. I was pretty bad as a freshman in high school, and I just kept working at it, and got a little better.
Well, you kind of lead me into my next question. We're going to ask you a little bit about your high school career, and what led you to play from there all the way to Arizona State.
Well, my parents didn't like me being awful, so they would. My mom actually would work with me in the backyard on learning how to tackle and how to use my hands on things, and I worked after practice every day to get better. And my sophomore year, I got a little better and started, and then by my junior year, I was a full-time starter, and then by my senior year, I was getting recruited heavily. And on the East Coast from New Jersey, and then I started getting recruited nationally.
All right, so what led you to choose Arizona State?
Honestly, what happened was it was a storm. It was a winter storm in New Jersey when I went to visit, and the weather was beautiful out there. It was 80 degrees, to be honest with you, and I was swimming, and I was talking to my parents, and they were talking about how bad the weather was back east, and I said, wait a minute. I'm here swimming in February, and they're going through winter storms in February. I think this would be a good idea to come to Arizona. And then little did I know that it was 115 in the summers. They didn't tell me that part.
So your coach at Arizona State was Darryl Rogers. What was your relationship like with him, and what was it like to play for him?
Well, originally my coach was Frank Cush. Frank Cush recruited me out. He recruited a lot. He was from Lynchburg, Pennsylvania, and he was my original coach until I think it was 6th or 7th game of my freshman year. And then Bob Owens took as the intern, and then Darryl Rogers took over my sophomore year. And I have a tremendous relationship with Coach Cush and Coach Rogers. I still have a very good relationship with both of them.
All right, now you had a very successful career at Arizona State. You guys had a huge Fiesta Bowl win in 1982 over Oklahoma, Marcus Dupree. You want to talk a little bit about that game and maybe some of the highlights of your college career?
Well, the funny thing about it is that when we played them, we were on probation for 3 years. We had really good teams from my sophomore year until my senior year at Arizona State, but we were on 3 years probation. So we couldn't go to any bowl games until my senior year. Thinking back about the Oklahoma game, Barry Switzer was making some, and I played for Barry in the NFL, but he was making some comments about how he didn't want to be in that Fiesta Bowl. And he made it look like he was belittling us, so we took it out. We were the number 1 defense in the country at that time, so we had very talented players on our team. And we took it as a slight, and we made sure that Oklahoma felt the wrath of the Sun Devils.
All right, now most NFL fans, if you're a fan of history, are pretty familiar with the famous 1983 NFL Draft. They did a documentary about it on ESPN. What was it like for you, your draft day in 1983?
Well, it was funny. 2 weeks before the draft, or actually a week before the draft, Gil Brandt called and told me that they were going to draft me. And I I hung up the phone because I thought somebody was playing a prank on me. And I hung up the phone, and then he called back and said, "Don't hang up the phone. This is really Gil Brandt, and I'm just letting you know I picked you in a mock draft, and then I'm going to pick you on draft day." So I thought they were, how those things go. People will tell you certain things because I had other teams call me and said that they were going to draft me on that certain day. And I thought it was a big joke, somebody trying to play a joke on me. But he called me and told me on draft day, he said, "See, I told you I was going to draft you." So it was funny. That was a funny story about it. And another funny story is that my high school defensive coordinator was a huge Cowboys fan. Well, I grew up in New Jersey. I grew up on the Jersey Shore, and I was a Giants fan. So I despised the Cowboys at that time when I was growing up. And I said, and he always would tell me that I was going to be drafted by the Cowboys someday. And I said, "Nah, I wouldn't." I said, "If I'm drafted by the Cowboys, I'm going to hang myself." So the day of the draft, he called me and said, "Hey, where did I send the news at?"
Good thing you didn't use it, right?
That's exactly right.
Well, you get to the Cowboys. You played for the legendary Tom Landry. What was it like playing for him?
It was interesting. Coach Landry designed the defense and the offense. He designed everything that we did. So, and there used to be a saying to perfect playing in his style of offense and defense, it took you 5 years. And because he had a unique defense in the flex, and he did all the hitches on offense, and he had the shotgun and things like that. So you had to really study it. It was interesting. It was fascinating, his genius. Because when we went into meetings, we had 3 or 4 hour meetings on Mondays because he would critique every position. No one else would talk but him, and he critiqued every defensive lineman, every linebacker, every DB, and the same thing on offense. He'd do every position, wide receivers, quarterback, the running backs, and everything. So offensive linemen, and it was fascinating, his knowledge of the game. It was really a learning experience about, why he was so good and why he had so much success.
Now, when you got to the Cowboys, you're learning, like you said, Tom Landry's defense. Who was probably your most influential teammate that kind of helped you get started with the Cowboys?
No question, it was Randy White because that's who I played next to. When I was Harvey Martin retired after my first year in the NFL, after my rookie year, and Randy took me under his wing, and taught me a lot about the defense. Actually, I started as a second-year player, which is a little unusual on defense in the flex defense.
All right, in 1985, I remember the game that stands out most to me, I think it was 85, was against Washington where you sacked Joe Theismann 5 times.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, you want to tell us a little bit about that game? That had to be one of the highlights of your career personally.
It's it's one of those things where you get in a groove and everything you do works. And people don't realize that Randy White had 3.5 sacks. We had between us. We had 8.5 sacks between us two on the right side, and everything we did was working. So you don't have those games every week, but when you do, you enjoy them, and it's just like you're just in that mode right there.
Now, every team goes through ups and downs, and definitely changing of the guard. After being in the league for a few years, new owner Jerry Jones comes in, and he decides to let Tom Landry go. What was it like for you and for the locker room when you got that news?
Well, it's interesting because people don't know this, but we were going to change our defense to a 3-4 if Coach Landry would have stayed. If he would have stayed, and I didn't know really where I fitted in a 3-4 because I had been a D lineman. I probably wasn't big enough to be a defensive end in there, and didn't know about the outside linebacker. I didn't know what they would do, and that in the new defense. But when Jimmy Johnson came in, it was the Miami style 4-3, which was perfect for my skill set. And actually, the first year Jimmy came, I had 11.5 sacks.
Yeah, in that first year, you guys go 1-15. You had a great season. How did Jimmy Johnson change the culture of the team? We know about the big trade with Herschel Walker, but what did he do behind the scenes to just kind of change the culture to turn the team around so quickly?
Well, he had a way of doing things, and if you didn't do those things his way, to be honest with you, he was going to get rid of you. And then the thing he always said that we will practice like champions because we will be champions, and we will play like them. And that was his montage and everything, and that's what he believed in. And we did. We practiced hard, and eventually we became Super Bowl champions, and that was his style. It was fast, quick, and aggressive. It wasn't. It was very physical, but it wasn't long practices. We didn't practice very long. We practiced hard, and that's what his big thing is. He didn't want us out there all day. He wanted us to practice hard and fast.
Well, by 1992, Dallas had definitely become one of the top teams in the league, and as an NFL fan, the games that I looked forward to the most, and I think it was the case for a lot of the country, was all the 3 years in a row, the Dallas 49ers NFC Championship.
Yeah, because you're a 49ers fan.
That's right. I definitely look forward to them, but those really were the best games.
Jim, I was a Bengals fan.
They were.
I didn't look forward to any games, but.
But what was that rivalry like for you?
Well, we were both at the peak of our, obviously, of the peak of our careers and players. We had the best players probably in the NFL at that time with the 49ers and the Cowboys. And, you had a lot of marquee players. So there was and it's competitive. It was competitive because of the history of both franchises. Obviously, the Cowboys with Coach Landry and the 49ers with Bill Walsh. So that made it really competitive because they were the kings at the time. And the only way to dethrone the king is to knock him off the throne. And that's what we were aiming to do.
Yeah, and I don't think Jim was there in '94, were you, Jim, or were you?
Yes.
Oh, you were? Okay. So you still got 2 out of 3 against Matt's Niners, though, so that's all right.
Yes.
But we go to '92. You guys had went through the '89 season, 1-15. The '90 season, I think you were 7-9 or 8-8. And actually, if Troy Aikman stays healthy, you guys might have made the playoffs there, which people forget.
Yeah, we missed it by one game. We missed it by one game.
And I think that last game you ended up with Babe Laufenberg playing quarterback for his old Indiana Hoosiers.
Against Atlanta. The Babe.
Yeah, but you end up at 91. You finally make the playoffs. You beat the Bears in a wild card, get blown out by the Lions.
Yeah, actually it was kind of ironic because I broke Jim Harbaugh's shoulder in that game.
Well, that was mean, Jim.
Just like I always tell John Elway when I see him, it was never personal. It was always business, never personal. I kind of liked him.
But then we get to the 92 season. You want to talk about the 92 season? And it had been a while since the Cowboys had been that good, probably about a decade, probably right after. 80 through 82, I know they were in a championship game every year. But what was it like for you to be on a team of that caliber? And just tell us what the atmosphere was around the city of Dallas.
Well, the biggest thing was confidence, and that's what Jimmy did a tremendous job of, is instilling confidence in us. And he believed that there was no game that we played that we would be out. He believed, and he made us believe that. He believed that we were the best team in the league, and he had that mentality. When we walked in there, he had expectations of us, and you had to meet those expectations. And that was the big thing with him. And he knew he had a great team, and he wasn't going to let that team falter in his mind. And he drove us hard. He drove us hard to the point that some guys didn't understand what he was trying to do. He knew we had a championship caliber team, and he knew that the 49ers were obviously the best team in the league. and he knew what we had to do to compete with him.